I'm very glad to introduce Professor Angela Lee, who is a professor of marketing at Northwestern University. Her title is very, very long. Let me read it out. It's Mechthild, Esser, Nemmers, professor of marketing at Kellogg, Northwestern University. And she's also Hong Kong Jockey Club Institute for Advanced Study professor, IAS professor over here. She has been a friend of our department for quite some time. She has visited HKUST at least a couple of times earlier. And, she graduated, she got her bachelor's degree from University of Hawaii, then master's degree from University of Hong Kong, and her PhD from University of Toronto. And since then, she has been working at Kellogg, Northwestern University's business school. And, this time we're very lucky to have her for several weeks. And she's offering a PhD seminar for our department. We are very, very thankful to her for that. Today, she's going to talk on psychological insights into the customer experience journey. And I would like to invite Angela.
Thank you, Muthu. Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It is a real pleasure for me to be here. As Muthu has mentioned, I'm a native of Hong Kong. I was born and raised here, and so this is really like coming home. And what an honor. I'm so glad that you didn't boo me when he announced that I got an MPhil from Hong Kong University, but I have to say at that time, this university did not exist. All right, otherwise I would have come. So I'm going to walk you through kind of from a marketing perspective, the customer experience journey and what psychological insights from academic research that can be brought into this understanding and enhancing customers' experience throughout. So now this is the traditional consumer decision model. People think that, okay, if I am trying to sell a brand, I'm going to market a product, I'm going to actually start, making sure that I exist. And after you are aware, I have to give you more information, you become more familiar with me, then I start to persuade you so that you are keeping me in mind in your consideration. And from there, I want you to buy me and come back and buy me again. So this is kind of from the brand's perspective. And this is like 9 years ago, one of the consulting company, McKinsey, decided that no, we need to actually not see it from the brand's perspective. We really need to see it from the customer's perspective. Now, why would that be important? Let me give you an example of, this is a survey of a company. This is a company trying really hard to bring customers on board to install cable. And it's a 3-month journey. They made altogether on average 6 phone calls. They have home visit. They have multiple email exchanges. And customer satisfaction survey on each of the touch point is A+. So really, really good. They were very happy. However, when they did a customer focus group, over the entire journey to really deciding which company to go with, they gave the whole experience a B. A B is not so good, right? It's not as good as A+. So they thought, well, what happened? So McKinsey actually suggested that, look, we have to understand the entire decision journey. What happens when they first consider what brands we want to evaluate, and then gather more information, and then at the time of purchase, what happens? Because I may be, developing all my preferences, but boom, at the time of choice, other things happen, and I end up not choosing the thing that I actually like the most. And after that, how do I get them to come back? And not come back to just make another purchase, but come back, but love me and stay with me. And if I actually am getting negative publicity, they're going to come out and defend me. How do I, as a brand manager, do that? So they argue that touch points matter, but it is really the full journey that matters. So what does an experience journey look like? So I'm going to use airline as an example. I live in Chicago, United is the hub. You live in Hong Kong, Cathay is the hub, right? So regardless of whether you are, on One World or you're on the Star Alliance as a loyalty program, you want to actually understand what is it that the consumers who are thinking about flying, making a purchase, what are they thinking about? What goes through their mind? So you can imagine the pre-trip is, first of all, they have to decide, okay, this is where I need to go. The first thing I do is I look at which Star Alliance airlines fly there, not just any airline, right? I'm looking for an airline that will give me my loyalty points. When do I have to be there? So, and then when I book, what is the schedule? What seats are available? I don't want to kind of get stuck in the middle seat. When I check in, should I do check-in online? Do I have a bag? What are the fees? What if the flight, I'm still waiting? What if the flight is overbooked? Is it on time? Am I going to get bumped? Once I get on board, can I relax? Can I check out the entertainment Wi-Fi? Do I have to worry about, is the seat clean? Is it dry? And then when I get there, okay, so where do I get my bag? Is it lost? Are all the bags out? So you can think at, each point, people are thinking about different things and they're worrying about different things. They're looking for different information. Not only that, they also experience different emotions, right? In the beginning, they say, okay, I need to figure out, gather information. Now that I have all the information, I have to make decisions. And when I want to check in, I kind of worry, where do I go? Where is my bag? And, what's going to happen if it's delayed or canceled? Can I relax? And what if I couldn't find my bag? So these are all the potential emotions that may be happening. And it's important that the airline recognizes a lot of the thinking and a lot of the feeling that is going on. And so potentially these may be all the things that the airline need to be considering. What about my scheduling? If I need to go to a particular city, how do I negotiate landing rights? If people are making decisions, well, how many options do I want to give them? If they're feeling anxious, what kind of support do I have at the airport to appease them? And so you can imagine at every point, it's really a different set of issues. And not only do airlines have to think about at each point, they also have to think about the entire experience, all right? So it is really the entire experience, and I'm going to offer you today some examples from academic research that we are not just really living in an ivory tower doing things that we like that has no real-world relevance. So the idea is sharing with you some of the findings that nerdy people like ourselves come up with to understand what motivates people, what information and what emotion would be driving their decision when they evaluate, and what happens at the time of purchase, what may influence choice besides the evaluation based on their cognition and emotion, and how do we get them to come back? And I argue that people would come back and be a loyal customer if they identify with the brand, if they think the brand is part of me. All right? So I'm going to kind of show you tidbits of what are some of the findings that we have in the academic world. So I'm going to be talking about motivation. So most of you have heard about Maslow. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you can see that at the very bottom are our basic needs. It doesn't matter who we are, how much money we make, whether we are even human or a little kitty. All living organisms actually need these two things. One is we need food. This two is we need to prevent being food, right? So that means we need to grow. We also need to feel safe and secure. So these two very fundamental basic needs really is the starting point of what motivates a lot of our behavior, our attention, and our perception. So think about, we need food to grow, that's our nurturance needs. We need to have a safe haven, that is our security needs. And these two needs gives us a promotion goal or a prevention goal. And these are what we call in the literature self-regulatory goals. We self-regulate, we regulate our attention, our attitude, our behavior towards servicing these needs. And they, in turn, drive our consumption goals. So people with a promotion goal, they are striving towards achieving growth and they're sensitive to positive outcomes, meaning we want good things in life. We don't want not having good things in life. Okay? And we focus on achieving our ideals, hopes, and aspirations. On the other hand, people with the prevention goals, they strive towards having safety and security. They are sensitive to negative outcomes. They approach the absence of bad things, and they avoid bad things. And they strive towards fulfilling duties, obligations, and responsibilities. Now, even though we need both types of nurturance as well as security, the thing is because we can't go out and look for food and stay in the hole, right? If we want to stay in the hole, we can't look for food. If we go out to look for food, we can't actually be safe. So a lot of times, even though we need both to survive, these two goals will pull us into different directions. And that is how we actually, most of the time we are one or the other, and they influence our consumption goals. So think about the example of buying a car, right? So you want to buy a car for transportation reasons, but then other reasons also influence your choice of car. So those with a promotion goal care more about growth, accomplishment, so they may be interested in a BMW, the ultimate machine. Compared to people with a prevention goal, safety and security is important, then Volvo may be the car that they look for. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who buys a BMW has a promotion goal, and everybody who buys a Volvo has a prevention goal, because you may end up buying the same car, but you will be looking at different features. If you're promotion-oriented, you'll be looking at, the sound system, the horsepower, whereas if you have a prevention goal, features such as a blind spot detection, traction control, all of these things will be more important to you. All right? So this is how having a promotion or prevention goal influence the way that we look at things that we want to purchase. Now, Sigmund Freud actually talked about people really approach pleasures and avoid pains. And what the promotion prevention goal brings to the table is arguing that there are two approach and avoidance systems. So for those with a promotion goal, they approach gains and they avoid non-gains. Whereas those with a prevention goal, they approach non-losses, the absence of bad things, and they avoid losses. So who has a promotion goal and who has a prevention goal? It seems that for companies to want to use this information is important to know. So the literature tells us that there is a cultural difference. Westerners tend to be more promotion-oriented, and Easterners, such as Chinese in Asia, tend to be more prevention-oriented. We are also influenced, even despite our cultural background, what is in the environment. We are also influenced by our own personality and our natural disposition. So let me give you a few examples. So when we talk about cultural differences, one very important dimension is whether we are in an individualist or collectivist culture, right? So I'm going to talk about really today just self-view and the promotion versus prevention goal. Self-view is the way that we look at ourselves. So one way to look at ourselves, mostly by people in an individualist culture, is I see myself as an autonomous, independent individual. Whereas people in a collectivist culture tend to see themselves more as part of a larger group. So they define themselves based on social relationships. For example, if I say, I am a faculty at HKUST, so I am defining myself as part of a larger group. I am the youngest in my family or oldest in my family. All right, so that's what someone with an interdependent self-view tend to think of themselves, not as an independent individual, but as part of a social collective. Okay, So, prototypical example, Americans, very individualistic, Chinese, collectivistic. One example, we are all very familiar. How does the promotion prevention really influence practice? Right? You go shopping, if it's in English or in the US, it would say 40% off big sale. In Hong Kong, what do we see? 六折大減價, right? So that means is one sign says 40% off, the other sign says pay 60%. So in the US, you focus on the good things, the discount that you're getting. In Hong Kong, we focus on what still hurts, what you still have to get out of your pocket, all right? Now, people with an independent self-view, as I mentioned earlier, tend to have a promotion goal, and people with an interdependent view tend to have a prevention goal. So this is a study that I can share with you. We tell people that you're playing in a tennis tournament or you are representing your team playing in a tennis tournament. When we tell them they are in a team, all of a sudden we are giving them a social collective to define themselves. So we expect that when they see you, independent self, you are representing your team, interdependent self. We tell them that you have made it to the finals, this is the last match. If you win this match, you will win the tournament. Or we say this is the last match, if you lose the match, you will lose the tournament. Now, how important is this match to you now? And you can see, if you win, it's more important than if you lose, you lose. But if your team wins, it is less important than if your team loses, right? So setting up a loss frame when people are thinking about a collective, they see the situation as being more important compared to a gain frame. If we're trying to sell tennis racket and we say, if you win, you will win, or if you lose, you will lose, and we collected data in US as well as in Hong Kong. The US subjects actually in general like the tennis racket more, but besides that effect, you can see that we're seeing if you win, you win, if you lose, has a very different pattern of how much do they like the tennis racket, depending on whether they're playing in a tennis tournament or they are representing the team playing in the tennis tournament. And we see exactly the same pattern. Meaning, if we tell Americans that you are part of a group, we turn them into Chinese. And if we actually tell Chinese that you are actually on your own, we turn them to be more like an American. All right, so we can actually swap the cultural values a little bit that way. Now, we can also look at certain products. Apparently, when people are thinking about stocks, they're actually thinking about, they're more promotion oriented. When they're thinking about retirement is for safety and security, they actually have a more prevention goal. In a set of studies conducted by one of the faculty in the marketing department here, Rong Zhao, she showed that compared to baseline, if people are thinking about investing in stocks, telling them that you're going to actually lose, you have a chance of losing 13.5% as opposed to the baseline of losing 4.5%, it didn't matter. But if you tell them that you're going to actually gain more, you can see that they're very sensitive. Yes, I'm more likely to buy this stock. On the other hand, telling them that you're going to actually make more money doesn't change anything from baseline. But if you tell them that you're going to lose more money when they are investing in mutual funds, they actually are they find the funds less attractive, right? So they're more sensitive to losses, whereas in stocks, they're more sensitive to gains. This is another set of studies. So whether give yourself a chance at great taste, a single person, or give your family a chance at great taste, a family of 4. So we have an interdependent self here, an independent self here. So the prediction is independent self, if we give them a promotion benefit, such as getting energized, or if we give them a prevention benefit, such as healthy cardiovascular function and reduce the risk of cancers, we should see a flip, right? So indeed, in terms of evaluating the website and evaluating the Welch's grape juice 2 weeks later, if give yourself a chance at great taste, the greater energy ad is more persuasive. But if it's give your family a chance at great taste, it is the prevent cancer and healthy cardiovascular functioning is more effective, all right? Now, this is also interesting. Remember earlier I said promotion focus is about gains and non-gains, and prevention focus is about loss and non-losses. But within the gains and non-gains, loss and non-losses, there is actually a higher order fit and a lower order fit. Our prediction is, now, if you didn't know any of the background, and I said, well, I have 2 ads. One has the tagline, get energized, and another has, don't miss out on getting energized. Which one do you think is more effective? Most of you will say get energized, right? Because it's easy, simple, it's to the point, right? Similarly, and I said, well, either prevent clogged arteries or don't miss out on preventing clogged arteries. Again, from a linguistic perspective, you're going to see prevent clogged arteries is going to be more persuasive than don't miss out on preventing clogged arteries. However, the theory actually suggests that the presence of negative outcome is actually a stronger message for those with a prevention focus, whereas a positive message is stronger for those with a promotion benefit. And so what we found was, if we say get energized versus don't miss out on getting energized, or don't miss out on preventing clogged arteries and just prevent clogged arteries, we find this ad as predicted to be more persuasive. I can show you the data, right? So getting energized works better than don't miss out on getting energized, but don't miss out on preventing clogged arteries. Very counterintuitive from a linguistic perspective, but from a theoretical perspective, this is actually what is predicted, okay? All right, so much for motivation. Let me talk about information search and judgment. And this is where some of the more interesting things come about. Because you would think that, yes, when we're trying to make decisions, we look at the information in front of us, and then we assess. Well, it turns out we don't make decisions based on just the information. We also make decisions based on how we process the information. Here, now, and how we process information is also influenced by how our mind works. Some of you may have heard about some theory saying that our long-term memory has really unlimited capacity. So we are not using, not even 10% of the brain power that we have. But how come we are constrained is because our processing mode, our working memory has limited capacity. And that kind of brings a lot of biases into how we process information. So now I'm going to give you a few seconds. I'm going to show you some letters, and I want you to actually see how many of them you can remember. All right? Hard, right? How many? 6, 7? Now, this is actually unfair advantage because I have an information processing expert here, and he knows what are the tricks, right? So this is actually hard. But now, if I actually put some color on the letters, boom, you can say Q, let IBM, SOT, NBC, Paul, X. That's quite easy, right? So you can chunk them. So it's not that experts can remember more things than novices in playing chess. It's just that they actually don't remember each move. They remember a set of moves as one piece of information. Okay, let me show. Okay, this is a fun one. So I'm going to give you some time. Count the number of times F appears. How many Fs are there in this? And don't say it out loud. Just keep it to yourself, all right? So, how many of you say there are 2 or more? 2 or more, raise your hand. Okay. 3 or more, keep your hands up. 4 or more. 5 or more. 6 or more. 1, 2 people, 3. 4. All right, 6. What? 6. You probably missed out the F in the offs. That's why, right? You say, well, I'm not stupid. I can see. My eyes are okay. How come I miss them, right? So that is because a lot of times we use not just bottom up, but we use top down, and we think we want to see what we want to see, and we have certain expectation, and we may not always see everything that is up there, right? So how many of you see a young girl? How many of you see an old lady? See, right? Depending on what you expect to see, you see different things. So as a marketer, that means your message should be focused. You need to repeat and then you need to actually do research to find out what is it that people are seeing, because what you want them to see may not be actually what they think they have seen. Okay? All right. Now, the other thing about memory, not only the fact that it's limited, but also it has connections in memory. We call it an associative network. So imagine if I say Disney, what comes to mind? Mickey Mouse, right? Princesses, if I say princess, Disney princess, think about Snow White, 7 Dwarfs. If you've been watching it since little kids, you know the Dick, Dick, Dick song. And from Snow White, you actually say Apple, the witch, red, and from Apple, maybe the iPhone. All right? So you can see one thing leads to another. Whereas if I actually give you iPhone, you may not actually trace it back to Disney, but Disney may eventually lead you to iPhone. All right. So this associative network is interesting because think about advertising. Of course, we spend money to help our brand, but sometimes we spend money may actually be not very effective because we may be helping other brands. So RC Cola, when you see RC Cola, what comes to mind? So right away, because this is not a major brand, we think about the category. This is a cola. What comes to mind when you think about cola? Coca-Cola, right? Now, if I, instead of giving you RC, I give you Coca-Cola, what comes to mind? Pepsi, right? Or you may be thinking about the Coca-Cola happiness machine. And are you going to actually think about RC Cola? No. So if you're RC Cola, you do advertising, you may be helping Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola will do advertising, will just help Coca-Cola. All right? So the asymmetry is important for companies to bear in mind. Now, there is a very interesting, excellent paper back in the 90s where they show that if I have major category for fast food and minor category for fast food, and within each category I have a major brand and a minor brand, because these are major category, people know them very well, advertising is not going to help them. But for brands that are less well-known, advertising is now going to prompt more top of mind. And especially if you are a major brand in a minor category, not only are you going to be helped by your own advertising, you're going to be helped by your competitors, a minor brand's advertising. And this is actually what was found. You can see the gray bars are when there's no advertising. So the own brand advertising doesn't help. There isn't really a lift. But if you are a minor category, a major brand, compared to no advertising, your own advertising helps. And not only that, your competitors' advertising also helps because it brings to mind, that you are a major player in that category. All right. So that means brands can be enhanced, can be helped by cues in the memory that are linked to your brand. Now, how does that work? So let's say you're interested in marketing ketchup. And you can think about, well, what is related to ketchup? When you think about ketchup, what comes to mind? Hamburger, French fries, mayonnaise, right? And so it is possible that some of these advertising could really help you. So in one of the study in the literature, the authors, one of them is me, looked at ketchup. Now you can see no advertising, and this is your own brand advertising. And the expectation is if people have seen you before, now you become, in our jargon, you become more fluent, more accessible in memory, they will also like you more. We also tested, what about in a related, expected context, but the ad is actually about a related product that reminds people maybe of ketchup, but not ketchup. And what happens if in this context that people do expect ketchup and they also see ketchup? What we found was, compared to you didn't see any advertising about your brand or related product, this is the baseline of ketchup. But in the supermarket context, you actually get a lift. But mayonnaise being advertised, you also get a lift compared to baseline. But if you are in expected hamburger context and you're being advertised, you get the highest lift. So you can see that when there are more cues in memory supporting you, triggered by things in the environment, you also benefit. All right? So cross-category advertising effect. So think about you're trying to promote a hair conditioner. And now, if you're promoting this, you're putting an ad out, do you want your ad to come after pasta, which has nothing to do with you, or come after shampoo, but it is a Q-Lice shampoo that is related to hair? Now, if shampoo ties to hair conditioner, you would think that maybe there is a lift because they're like mayonnaise and ketchup. Not necessarily, and I'll walk you through why. Compared to if you are not hair conditioner, but you are Raid cockroach killer, what happens? So in this study, we show people a Q-Lice shampoo and then the conditioner, or we show them the Q-Lice shampoo and the insecticide. So think about the relationship here. Shampoo and hair conditioner, clearly they are related, hair products. And then lice shampoo and Raid, they're also related because they kill insects. Now think about promotion prevention goal that I mentioned earlier. These two have different goals. This is to actually make our hair look nice, promotion goal. This is to get rid of things that we don't like, prevention goal. And this is a prevention goal. So here we have a goal conflict, we have a goal match effect. And we can see does the category match trumps the goal match or vice versa. So this is what we found. After pasta ad, that is our control because they are really not related. Compared to now, I am evaluating the conditioner, which is the yellow bar. After seeing the Q-Lice shampoo, you can see there is a drop. All right, so even though I am related to the category, but because we have conflicting goals, I actually don't like it. But here, I don't belong to the hair category, but we have similar goals to kill insects, prevention goal. We actually now get a lift. All right, so it seems that what people are looking for, the goal, matches the semantic relationship, right? A goal match is more powerful. So have to bear in mind that your own brand attitudes can be influenced by other brands' advertising. So now early on, I actually mentioned that we make decisions not just based on the information, not just based on what, but based on how we process. Because we have to fill in the blanks a lot of times, and we rely on our experience to kind of make inference as to what may be going on. I'm going to show you this example. So there is this product description of a bicycle, gives you the specs and tells you what are the pros, and potentially you can say this is a con, right? But in one option, one version, it says product specifications. In another, the authors highlighted these are product pros, this is a product con. Now, turns out when people think that they have both considered pros and cons, they feel much better than their decision. because they thought, I'm not being biased, I have exhausted all the information out there. And they not only do they like it more, they also hold their attitude with higher certainty. They're more confident about their attitude. And so we know from the literature that the attitude-behavior correlation is actually quite weak unless they feel confident about their attitude. Because you can imagine, so on a scale of 1 to 7, well, how much do you like the restaurant? You say, well, maybe it's a 6. It's quite good. Compared to, it is a 6, it's fabulous, right? And so the confidence, even though the rating is the same, the confidence will prompt you to, next time I'm going to go again. Okay? Now, another example, there are many reasons to drive a BMW. Can you think of one reason? Compare this ad to another ad. There are many reasons. Can you think of 10 reasons? Which ad is more effective? 1 reason to drive or 10 reasons to drive? 1 reason. Because it's a hunch. The hunch is correct, right? Because we say, well, I can come up with 1 reason. So easy. It must be a good car. 10 reasons, by the time you get to reason number 5 or 6, you're struggling. And then now you say, well, I'm struggling. Why am I struggling? There must not be that many good reasons to drive a BMW. So that inference really prompts your less favorable attitude. Except if you have no problem generating 10 reasons, then 10 reasons actually trump 1 reason because there are more reasons to drive the BMW. All right? So depending on, are you talking to average people, or are you talking about kind of car fanatics who actually really know about not just BMW, but Porsche, Mercedes, Honda, Toyota, and they will actually, the 10 reasons will actually give them a bump, okay? All right? We evaluate products not just based on information, but also based on how we feel. Are we feeling happy? Are we feeling sad? Now, when it comes to emotions actually have 2 very different influences on how we make decisions. One is it affects our thinking style. And another is it affects our motivation to actually feel good. Okay? So these 2 things can actually have very different consequences. So it's important to actually know when do people use it as information, when do people want to use it as a regulation. All right, great movie. I hope some of you at least have seen it. So this is joy. Now, what does positive mood does? Positive mood cues other positive things in memory. Remember that associative network? So in a way, it's good because it brings up all the pleasant memories. But not only that, it also promotes abstract thinking. Abstract thinking is we prompt people to think about why. Let me give you an example. If I say, I'm picking an apple, and I ask you, well, how do you think about picking an apple? Do you see picking an apple as I'm getting something to eat? Or do you think of picking an apple as I am pulling a fruit off a branch? If you represent I'm getting something to eat, you're thinking more abstractly. You're thinking about why am I doing this? But if you're thinking picking an apple right away, I'm thinking about I'm pulling a fruit off a branch, you're thinking about how do I do that? And so you're thinking more concretely. So you care more about the feasibility. All right? Now, a sad mood, this is sadness, cues negative materials, so we become more sad, but it also promotes concrete thinking. So anything that requires us to do concretely, like doing math or picking out different things, that's good. Sad mood actually helps. Now, let me show you an ad. This will appeal to someone in a positive mood because this is very abstract, right? It actually reminds you about all the fun things you can see, it turns into butterflies compared to a very concrete ad. So depending on people's mood, different ads may appeal to different people in different emotional state. Now, if you're trying to get women to go get a mammogram to screen for breast cancer, you can either frame it as a loss frame. You cannot feel confident nor have the peace of mind that you're doing the best you can to find breast cancer early. Or you can frame it in a gain frame. If it's found early, it's more likely to be curable and you can feel confident and have the peace of mind. Which one works better, you may ask? Now, turns out there is a mood effect. Very counterintuitively, it is not that positive mood wants gain frame and negative mood wants loss frame. It doesn't work that way because of a mood regulation effect. People are motivated. If I'm feeling good, I want to make sure that I keep feeling good. So I'm very sensitive. I'm very sensitive to negative information because if I see negative information, I'm going to stay away. But if I am feeling sad, I want to feel good. I want to feel better. And so I'm looking constantly for positive information. Okay, so what happens is happy people pay more attention to the loss frame ad, and that becomes more effective. And sad people pay more attention to gain frame ad, and then the gain frame is more effective for sad people. And that's kind of what the authors found. Positive mood, loss frame. Negative mood, gain frame. All right? We also found that ads don't work very well when there is an emotional conflict. So in this study, subjects either saw a very sad clip from the champ or they see something neutral, a documentary, and they were shown two commercials for Geico, which is a car insurance company. One is highly energetic and the other is moderately energetic. And what they found was for the moderate energetic, the sad mood actually works better. People in a sad mood like it more. But the highly energetic ad, you can see people who are in a sad mood really do not like this because it is so different from the state that they are experiencing. It really turns them off. All right. So think about if you are, playing a very important match and the home team lost, people are not going to be happy. So don't give them something very energetic. All right. So think about the commercials that you have prepared. So the other thing about trying to improve on the mood is there is also a difference between sadness and anxiety. When people feel sad, most of the time it is because something important to them has been lost. And so in order to recover, they want to actually find things that are of value, despite it having some high risk. On the other hand, when people are feeling anxious, the anxiety comes from uncertainty. And in order to recover from the uncertainty, they will seek safety. And so they're going to look for low risk, even though the return is also low. So in a set of studies, the participants in the study were given a choice. You can either choose 60% chance of winning $5 or 30% chance of winning $10. Which one would you choose? So one is kind of a low risk, low return, or high risk, high return. Or they were saying that, well, you can either pick a job that has high salary but low job security, or high job security and low salary. And this is what happens. So gray bar is the neutral mood, that's the control. You can see people who are feeling anxious will go for the low risk despite the low return, and people who feel sad would go for the high return despite the high risk. All right, so mood actually really influences decision making in a very specific way, depending on not just negative mood, but what kind of negative mood. Are you feeling sad or are you feeling anxious? So what marketers need to know is to understand the different types of emotions, how it influences decision making, and know how to harness it. Okay, now we talk about choice. You would think that people would actually choose what they like the most. Turns out that's not always the case, depending on what is out there. So I have already shown that, describing different options using gain or loss frame makes a difference. But we can also structure the task the sets that is in front of them or around them, and that also makes a difference. And so, give you an example. So subjects in the studies were given a choice of a cross pen or $6. Or in another group of subjects, they were given the cross pen, $6, but also a big pen to choose from. So the big pen is completely dominated by the cross pen. So you can think that is, why should it matter? But turns out that it does. When the big pen is present, we are actually getting more people choosing. We have another 6% of people choosing the cross pen compared to when the big pen is not present. We also talk about a decoy price. There is a difference between if we only see 2 bottles of wine, not too many people are going to pick the $30 bottle, but if you now put a $50 bottle, you're going to jack up the sales of the $30 bottle, even though no one's going to buy the $50, right? This is a real experiment conducted in Southern California on the beach, and they were trying to see how much people would pay for a CD when the store next door is selling a sweatshirt for either $80 or for $10. Turns out that, yes, the sweatshirt next door selling at $10, this is how much people on average are willing to pay for a CD compared to $9 when a sweatshirt was priced at higher price. We all want more choices. We all want options, right? So when we actually ask people, do you want more options or fewer options? Everybody will say we want more options. In this study, the researchers went to the supermarket close by and either set up a stall with 24 jams, 24 varieties, or 6. And they measured how many people approached the booth and how many people made a purchase. And all of you guessed right, people actually do like variety, and so there are a lot more people coming to the booth. So you have more people approaching, but these people didn't buy. So we call it a choice overload effect. There are too many options. They ended up, rather than actually make a decision and then regretting it, I'm just not going to buy. All right, so depending on, do you want to kind of let people know about your brand, or do you really want to make some sales? All right, fewer options in this situation got more purchases. This is also really interesting. So let's say you're trying to be healthy and you're trying to watch the number of calories that you have. And so you're trying to assess, well, how much calories is in this meal versus that meal. So meal A, we asked subjects, how many calories do you think is in meal A, this hamburger with lettuce and tomatoes? And they said, well, 761 calories. Well, what about if we throw in a chocolate chip cookies, right? It's going to be more for sure, right? 861 calories. Well, but what about we throw in some healthy things like broccoli? Oh my gosh. Somehow, having broccoli takes away calories, right? When it is really not logical, but it's 665 versus a 761. So people think that I'm eating 100 calories less just because it's healthy. All right, so we're very biased. So depending on what you put out there, whether you throw in a chocolate chip cookie or broccoli, you may actually have people more likely to buy your hamburger, and you probably could charge more for broccoli. So the other thing is people procrastinate. They always wait until the last minute. As you can see, this is a sign up, at the end of the 4-week period, you can sign up. Or here we are closing the exhibit, you can see there are more people. So a little cafeteria, coffee shop in California decided to kind of run an experiment. And they said, well, let's actually give a gift certificate to bring people back. Either expires in 2 months or expires in 3 weeks. And they measure the attitude towards the cafe, intention to use, and redemption of the gift certificate. Turns out, of course, not surprising, if you have a longer redemption, they like it more. So they like the cafe, they like the whole idea of the gift certificate more, compared to 3 weeks if you give them 2 months. But The intention follows the same pattern, but the actual redemption, the actual coming back to do it is very different. So again, depending on, do you want to actually just do good PR and you don't want to give out free food, then it seems like the 2 months is a good bet, right? But if you actually really want people to come and try your product, and so the actual consumption matters, then having the 3 weeks may be better. Okay. Showing you another choice architecture that influences what people do. People, whether they opt in or opt out, makes a big difference because while 85% of the people surveyed said, yes, I think organ donation is a good thing, but only 28% in the population that was sampled really granted permission. And so why? So the researchers looked at the difference, and it turns out that some countries will do an opt-in. Check this box if you wish to be an organ donor, versus check this box if you do not wish to be an organ donor. So when you have to opt in, not that many people opt in compared to you have to opt out to not be an organ donor. Okay? So even though people do want to do it, but if you have to actually ask me to do an extra step by checking a box, they're too lazy to do it. And if we actually look at the countries that do an opting out, they have very, very high organ donation permission compared to countries that use an opt-in very, very low. So it's not that these people are more generous. It's just the form that they have to fill out facilitate one behavior versus the other. The same thing with, a lot of people said, yes, when I'm dying, I want to choose comfort care. I don't want to prolong life, but I just want to be comfortable. Most people actually would want that. But depending on what is the default, if the default is life extension, only 42% say, yes, I want comfort care, compared to if the comfort care is the default. And it applies to actually all, the feeding tube, dialysis, the CPR, all of those things. So making which one is the default matters. So the takeaway is less is more. What else is there matters. Customers procrastinate and use opt-out as the default works better. Okay, I'm going to talk about loyalty in the last 5 minutes. Loyalty. What is loyalty? Loyalty is we want people not just to come back, but we want them to be loyal to us. And what does loyal to us means? That means they will die for us, right? Defend us. That's loyalty. I want to actually share with you some thoughts about William James, and I think loyalty ties to who we are and how do we see the brand. William James is often called the father of psychology, and he has written 2 volumes, The Principles of Psychology, and a lot of things that people are now discovering. Inevitably, you will have someone in the audience saying, but that's already in James. James already talked about it. So let's actually see how James, back in 1842, talked about self. What makes up the self? He said the self, there is the objectives, who I am, the pure ego, this is my essence. And then there is the subjective self. So, and he makes a difference between the objective and the subjective self. So let me give you an example. I know it was me who ate the cookies. So I know, I'm the thinking person, I'm the ego. It was me, like a little person who walked over and ate the cookies. So you can separate the two out. So he talks about there's the material self and the spiritual self, the social self. Social self is, who we are, our social identity. The spiritual self is what is our personality, what are the things that we think are important. And the material self is, the physical self and what belongs to us. What belongs to us is actually interesting because James said a man's self is the sum total of all that he can call his. Not only his body and his psychic powers, but his clothes and his house, his wife and children, his ancestors and friends, his reputation and works, his lands and horses and yacht and bank account. If they do well, he feels good. If they don't do well, he feels bad. And that is the self. All right, so if we actually look at James, Brands are part of our material self because we own certain products, but they also reflect our spiritual self because they are symbolic of what we think are important, as well as our social self. You may be wearing an HKUST t-shirt, and that is your social self, right? Okay, so what happens when a brand is part of you and is under attack? So in this study, consumers were asked to react to a negative Starbucks editorial. Starbucks has capitalized on the ills of our modern society, appealing to our egos more than to our taste buds. And there is, it goes on and on. And we also measure to what extent Starbucks is part of you. Does it reflect who you are? Can you identify with Starbucks? Do you feel a personal connection? And what we found was after reading the negative editorial, people who don't identify with the brand all develop a more negative view of Starbucks. People who identify with the brand, if they have high self-esteem, they also said, yeah, then Starbucks is probably not very good. But look at those people who have low self-esteem, they actually now come out and defend the brand by saying, I like this brand, I like it even more. All right? Because they really feel they themselves were being attacked and they feel an urge to defend themselves. People actually really rely on things to feel better. In another study, they were asked, how much are you willing to pay for, some products that were high status or some utilitarian products? And they were asked to rate it on a 12-point scale. 1 is 10% of the retail price, meaning unless it's in a deep discount, I'm not going to buy it. 12 is 120% of the retail price. It would be crazy if people actually check that box. But what happened was also some of them, half of them were given a power threat. They were asked to recall a particular incident in which someone had power over you, and they wrote about it. And afterwards, they were asked, how much are you willing to pay for these products? And you can see threat or no threat doesn't matter. Does not change how much they are willing to pay for the utilitarian products. But look, the power threat participants were more willing to pay for the luxury products that symbolizes status. All right, so that means they are really trying to use the brand to give themselves a boost. In another study, we asked people to write about your characteristics that show that you are an intelligent person. So they either write it with their dominant hand, if you're right-handed, that's your right hand, or they write with the non-dominant hand, which is the left hand. And then they ask them to choose between, as a token of appreciation, you can either take away a fountain pen or some M&Ms. And what they found was people who wrote with a non-dominant hand were more likely to choose the fountain pen because they really felt, I may not be very smart, because they were shaking as they were writing how intelligent I am, and that prompted them to compensate by choosing the fountain pen. But people don't always choose things that are symbolic of the area that they feel threatened. So in a recent research, we draw on Schwartz's circumplex model of values. And he said, well, by and large, we can group things that people care about in 4 categories. Self-enhancement, this is about me being successful. This is about helping other people. This is about upholding tradition, and this is open to innovation and change and being curious. And turns out that they actually are polar opposites. And so the theory was people will seek compensation in the domain that they feel threatened if that threatened domain is very important. But they will seek compensation in the opposite domain if the opposite domain is more important than the threatened domain, right? So I'm going to show you data that people were threatened. They were actually threatened to say, you're not a very compassionate person. People who think that self-transcendence, being compassionate is important, they actually compensate in this area. But people who think that, okay, I'm not a compassionate person, but it is less important to me than my own personal success. So even though they still feel threatened, they compensate in this domain. Let me show you the data. They were asked to actually write about a time when they feel certain or when they feel doubtful, and then they write about a time when they were compassionate. And so the idea is people who wrote about uncertainty and compassionate, they will kind of feel that maybe I'm not a compassionate person. And they were asked to evaluate compassionate brands, Nelson Mandela, Tom's Shoes, an eco-friendly car, or Warren Buffett, Ferragamo shoes, and Prestige BMW, all right? So you can see, compared to the baseline when they were not threatened, people actually like eco-friendly products this much and luxury products this much. These are people who were threatened and they think that being compassionate is important. Look what happens. Not only do they like the eco-friendly products, the Tom Shoes, Nelson Mandela more, they also like the luxury products less. So they're kind of really pushing it away, rejecting the opposite. But for those who were threatened, but who thinks that self-enhancement is more important to central to who they are, we see the reverse. They actually like the luxury products more, and they like the eco-friendly products less, right? So people actually do use brands to compensate for how they feel. So what determines loyalty? In some recent research, there were actually really two levels of loyalty. There are the satisfied loyals, and companies looking at that may say, well, this is pretty good, right? They think that we are dependable, we're one of their favorite brands, and we make them happy. We are part of the fabric of their lives, and we are really part of them. But think about a different type of loyalty that these authors discover is the committed loyals. They say, well, this brand is the only brand that does what it does. I can't imagine living without it. It has a purpose I believe in. You can see that the passion that they are expressing in the committed is really different. And these are the people that will give you the social buzz, and this will give you the net promoter scores. These are the people who would come out and defend you when you are under attack. Okay? So all companies would love to actually have loyal customers who actually really think that the brand is who I am and I represent the brand. Right? So I have walked you through a little bit of what academics do in our research in this customer experience journey, from motivation to information search and judgment to choice, and finally to who I am and how does that make me loyal or not loyal to a brand. So touch points matters, but it's the full journey that really counts. How do we enhance the customer experience journey can be enhanced by knowing some of these things, right? So thank you very much. Any questions? Yes?
So if your customers are actually a diversified group, so you mentioned about the preventive and also the promotional goals. Mm-hmm. So how should we deal with that kind of situation? Because the diversified group probably will include different types of people.
Yes. So now as marketers, one of the hardest decisions that marketers have to make is not who should I target, is who should I not target, right? It's like giving up and focusing on who would, because we're really constantly looking for customers who like what we do best and who do not mind what we don't do well, right? So first of all, I want to highlight that. The other thing is, yes, but even within the group who actually, like what we do best and don't mind, and so what will be a good way to market to them? Now, first of all, we may not know whether they're promotion or prevention, right? But we do know that if the message itself is coherent. So if we say, give yourself a chance at great taste, and we pair it with get energized, that is going to be more effective than if we mix and match. So at the minimum, you want to actually be coherent within the message, right? So there are some of the things that we can do, and then there are certain things that we cannot do.
I know when you pay for like Facebook ads or YouTube ads, you're checking boxes saying like I want to target people who like to travel or people who like bicycles. But do you know have those companies started integrating like these associated networks in their marketing?
Some of them may have, and it's actually not clear even if they tap the associative network. Do they know? Do they actually know some of the nuances? Now, there is an article that talked about the U.S. election last year. What happened that ended up with those results? It seems that some companies are taking the social media posts and trying to categorize people based on their personality, and based on their personality, they were able to actually estimate which party they are likely to belong to, and therefore what they care about. And so they were able to deliver very customized messages to promote things that the Republicans care about, like national security or terrorism, and kind of encourage them to go to the polls. And they would also customize messages to actually deliver, true or not true, news that the Democrats actually care about, but were very annoyed about their candidate, in order to discourage them to go to the poll. And so yes, companies are starting to do that, but whether they have all the insight that they could use, we don't know. But it's actually amazing nowadays with social media, because you can be very targeted with a very, very small budget. You can even say, I have $5 and I want to spend $5 a day. Now think about a lot of the big companies would be spending like billions of dollars on advertising. No longer, right? Because first of all, TV advertising doesn't play as central a role nowadays as before. But Google and Facebook, they could actually deliver. So let's say you are paying by click-throughs. And you know that, if they click on it, I'm paying $1 for every click. And you have $5 a day, which is really a very, very small budget, right? If you are a little entrepreneur, you can afford $5 a day, but you know that all these 5 people that you're paying for are clicking onto your website, and you know that you have a 20% chance if they come to your website to make a purchase. Then you're getting a really, really big bang for your buck. And so Google and Facebook may actually really be cornering the market. There is no way other advertisers could compete, because they just don't have the reach nor the information to deliver such targeted marketing. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So I have 2 questions. So my first question is, given that resources are finite in the advertising and promotions, and assuming that the brand is mature in its life cycle, what is your recommendation in terms of how you allocate the resources in the touch points that you've mentioned? You suggest to prioritize, be it in the loyalty or in the choice making. Mm-hmm. And my second question is there like a difference in terms of the demographics, in terms of which touch points that you're going to focus in terms of promoting the brand?
Yes. So first, I'm going to answer the first question. So if a product or a brand is in the mature stage of the product life cycle, the question is, what should the resources be allocated? Is it to advertising for persuasion, or is it to choice? So my first immediate reaction was, okay, let's actually find out exactly what that mature stage means. Is it mature in the current market that they are operating? Is there a chance to actually now look for a new market, right? Are there ways to increase usage by being more innovative? That if you rely on social media, you may realize that your customers are using your brand in a very different way than you anticipated. Are there ways to kind of keep you in the growth stage? Or are you really resigned that, no, we are absolutely in the mature stage, all right? So first, I would encourage companies to spend some resources kind of doing that, and constant innovation is critical, right? And then you have to think, well, if if it's coming down to this is a cash cow, I'm just milking it, then you just want to make sure that you are available. You don't have a stock out opportunity. So I will spend money on the channels rather than on advertising because people already know you. They just have to actually be able to find you when they want to buy. So these are some of the thoughts that come to mind. And your second question, I have forgotten. The demographics, yes. Now, the demographics, if a company wants to segment based on demographics, and most of the time, I would advise companies not to do that because now, why do companies segment based on demographics? Is because it's easy, because it's something that's observable. But demographics may not actually help you segment the market in the most efficient way because demographics really is just a proxy for something that they are looking for, right? So if you think that old people and young people look for different things, then yes, demographics. Now, I can give you an example. This is a chewing gum. In the chewing gum category, people use demographics to segment the market a lot because the teenagers and the tweens, they respond to things very differently to young adults and to kind of more mature adults. And now you could have a brand that have very high awareness amongst the young people, but higher conversion and loyalty rate among the older. Then you have to actually make a choice. Should I target the young or should I target the old? Right? And so then it becomes more strategic. Do you think that if the old, they like you, but they actually are not aware of you, but you think that there has more potential, you want to actually say, okay, let's actually make them more aware. But if you think that the young people actually have the higher upside potential, they are aware of you, but they actually don't all convert or they don't stay loyal, then what do you have to do to actually kind of get them to consume you more? So these are different things, right? Now, I may be biased because I teach marketing research. I really think having information is very important, right? So companies don't spend enough resources on doing the right kind of marketing research. And so then they are doing a lot of guessing game. Okay. Other questions? Yes?
Professor Lee, you mentioned earlier in the presentation about the impact of mood on consumer behavior, and the impact is through like a regulatory approach that people feel sad, probably will want something more exciting. And later you mentioned that...
Not necessarily, not exciting. They want to feel good, right? Feel good could be calm.
Okay. And then later you mentioned about compensatory consumption, about powerless people choose some symbols. So I'm wondering, is the regulatory approach and compensatory approach different thing?
It's similar. So the mood regulation is just I want to feel good, right? The compensation has more to do with I am experiencing a self-threat. I feel that my self-image is being threatened. Now, I could feel sad without my self-image being affected, right? So you have to actually think, do they feel sad because they really feel that they are, your parents kind of scolded you and you really feel that you can't do anything and that's why you feel very sad. That is a mood effect as well as a self-threat effect, right? But sometimes we can go see a very sad movie and we're sad, but I don't feel bad about myself, right? So that compensation, the compensatory consumption that I talked about in the literature is usually about a self-threat rather than a mood repair strategy, okay? But sometimes they can be both. They can be together. Yes?
There may be brand choices in the customer journey. So how will you deal with it?
Can you elaborate?
Such as there may be accidents or attack by other brand. So your brand is competing with others.
Okay, so crisis. Depending on the type of crisis, sometimes the company coming out to defend may not be as credible as if you actually let your fan base to come out and help you defend, right? And so it depends on the type of crisis that it may sometimes make sense to wait a little bit, like half a day, to see whether someone is going to come out and defend you. If there is, they will be more credible and more effective. But otherwise, companies do have to do something. But then again, it also depends on what it is. There is some research, so this is years ago. Most of you in the audience were probably not yet born. There was rumor saying that McDonald's hamburgers have worm meat in it. And so the companies actually came out and kind of say that it's not true, and then after a few months, it subsided. But some of my colleagues actually really did some research, and they simulated some rumor in the lab, and they found that when the company come out to refute it, that is actually not effective. They still have this negative attitude towards the brand. So coming out to actually say this is not true did not help. However, getting them to remind them of some positive associations that they have with the brand, that actually helped because it diverted their attention away and then remind them of the positive things. And that weakened the link between the rumor of worm meat and McDonald's, and then buffer the brand because of all these positive things against it. So it really depends on what kind of crisis, whether is it a rumor or is it actually really real. If something that's very real, and I think the best approach is to come out and admit fault and actually really be sincere in terms of saying this is how we are fixing it. Because I think that authenticity and that sincerity is very important. And a lot of times companies may even be able to recover and come up even stronger if they come out and do the right thing. Yeah. So different approaches.
Professor Lee, just a follow-up question. So, correct me if I'm wrong. I think in your presentation, I think there's a lot of emphasis on the information, which serves as a basis for the person to make decision or the motivation. So I'm just wondering how much, or as an influencer, basically. So I'm just wondering if there's also a touch in terms of the influence of the peers and other people in
You mean how other people think and how to social influence? Yes, I mean a lot of that would be. There is a lot of research showing that if we're all in the room, even though I think this is actually not very good, but if everybody else has said this is a great product, I will also say it's a great product. So there is a lot of social influence. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thanks.